The world fears being alone, but she has turned loneliness into her greatest strength. From childhood, we are told that our worth is tied to how many friends we have, how many people invite us to their table, how many voices speak in our favor. Society glorifies the crowd, the noise, the company, and the illusion of belonging. Yet the greatest growth rarely comes in the middle of noise. The deepest transformation rarely comes with a crowd cheering for you. True strength, the kind that cannot be shaken, is forged in silence. It is forged in the quiet hours when there is no one else to lean on, no hand to pull you up, no voice to reassure you. Solitude becomes the training ground where self-discovery begins. Most people run from solitude. They fear silence because in silence they are confronted with themselves. When there is no distraction, when there are no friends to keep them occupied, they begin to hear the voices within the insecurities, the doubts, the unresolved pain. That is why they surround themselves with noise. They would rather drown in meaningless chatter than face themselves in the mirror of solitude. But the woman who embraces being alone discovers something most people never find: the ability to stand tall with or without support, to create joy with or without company, to carry herself through life without needing others to carry her. That is power. There is a unique freedom in solitude. When you are alone, you are no longer forced to compromise your values for acceptance. You no longer bend yourself into shapes that please others but break you inside. You no longer sacrifice your truth just to fit into someone else's world. Alone, you are free to be authentic. Alone, you are free to walk your own path without explaining it to anyone. Alone, you can finally hear your own voice clearly. And that voice, once discovered, becomes louder and more powerful than the approval of 1,000 people. Strength built in solitude is unshakable because it is not borrowed. Many rely on their friends for courage, for confidence, for validation. They feel strong only when they are surrounded by others, but take away the crowd and their strength crumbles. The woman who finds strength in solitude does not borrow it from anyone else. She grows it within. That strength does not disappear when the room is empty. In fact, it shines brighter when she stands alone. Every tear wiped alone, every problem solved alone, every night survived without comfort builds a foundation of resilience. She learns that even in her weakest moments, she has enough power within to rise again. She learns that even when the world walks away, she still has herself. That realization changes everything. Because once you discover that you can survive alone, you no longer fear being abandoned. You no longer chase after people who do not respect you. You no longer beg for a seat at tables where you are not valued. You become your own anchor, and when you are anchored within, no storm outside can drift you off course. Solitude is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the space where creativity blooms, where ideas come alive, where visions are born. In the quiet, you can think deeply, dream freely, and plan without distraction. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history came not from the noise of the crowd, but from individuals sitting alone, reflecting, creating, imagining. Solitude gives you the ability to see the bigger picture, to connect with your higher self, to align with your purpose. That is why those who embrace solitude often move with a clarity and focus that others lack. They are not distracted by gossip, not consumed by comparison, not lost in the endless cycle of social noise. They move with intention, and their steps are firm because they know where they are going. But solitude also tests you. It demands that you face your weaknesses head on. Without others to lean on, you are forced to lean on yourself. Without others to encourage you, you must learn to encourage yourself. Without others to guide you, you must learn to trust your own intuition. These tests can be painful, but they are necessary, because every time you pass one, you grow stronger. Every time you survive one, you realize that what you thought would break you only made you more unbreakable. The world misinterprets solitude as loneliness. They assume that being alone means you are unwanted, unloved, or left behind. But there is a profound difference between being lonely and being alone. Loneliness is the absence of connection. Solitude is the presence of self. Loneliness is craving others. Solitude is discovering yourself. Loneliness drains you. Solitude fills you. And when a woman chooses solitude not because she has no choice, but because she understands its value, she is no longer defined by society's shallow definitions of strength. She defines herself. In solitude, you stop chasing people who do not value you. You realize that peace is worth more than company. You learn that being alone is far better than being surrounded by people who bring you down, doubt you, or drain you. You become selective. not because you are arrogant, but because you finally understand the worth of your own energy. Solitude teaches you that your space is sacred, and not everyone deserves access to it. That lesson alone can transform your life. There is also a confidence that comes from solitude. When you can enjoy your own company, when you can go places alone without shame, when you can stand in silence and feel whole, you radiate a different kind of strength. You are no longer dependent on others to make you feel worthy. You are no longer afraid of walking into a room without a companion. You are no longer anxious about being misunderstood. You are free to be yourself fully because you have already learned to love yourself in the quiet moments when no one else was watching. This confidence is rare, and people notice it. They see a woman who does not chase attention, who does not cling to friendships for validation, who does not compromise herself just to be liked. They see someone who is whole without the crowd, and that kind of wholeness is magnetic. Ironically, the woman who needs no one often attracts the most genuine people, because her strength demands respect and her energy repels the shallow. Solitude also builds discipline. When you are alone, there is no one to push you, no one to remind you, no one to hold you accountable. You either push yourself or you stay stagnant, and when you learn to push yourself, you develop a discipline that others cannot match. You get up when no one is watching, you work when no one is cheering, you commit even when no one applauds. That discipline turns solitude into productivity, and productivity into progress. It is in these moments that dreams are built, that skills are sharpened, that futures are created. The truth is, those who fear solitude will always depend on others for strength, for confidence, for direction. But those who embrace it become unstoppable. They walk into any situation knowing that even if everyone turns against them, they will not crumble. They carry with them an inner shield, an inner fire, an inner stability that cannot be shaken by the presence or absence of others. They do not just survive alone, they thrive alone. And when they do choose to let people into their world, it is not from need, but from choice. A woman who embraces solitude is powerful because she cannot be controlled. She is not desperate for attention, not hungry for acceptance, not weak without company. She does not bend under pressure to fit in, because she has already learned to stand out alone. She does not allow the fear of being alone to make her settle for toxic relationships or shallow friendships. She waits, she observes, and she only welcomes those who align with her values, her vision, and her peace. And until then, she walks alone, knowing that her own company is more than enough. The most beautiful thing about solitude is that it strips away illusion. You realize who you are when there is no one else to impress. You discover your true desires when there is no one else to influence you. You uncover your hidden strengths when there is no one else to carry you. Solitude reveals the truth, and truth is the foundation of power. Once you know who you are, once you see yourself clearly, no one can convince you otherwise. No insult can shake you. No rejection can break you. No betrayal can end you. You remain steady because your worth is no longer borrowed from others. It is rooted within, and when you finally step into the world after embracing solitude, you walk differently. You no longer seek approval, you carry self-approval. You no longer fear judgment, you carry self-acceptance. You no longer crave company, you carry completeness. And that is the kind of strength that cannot be faked, cannot be bought, cannot be taken away. That is the untold power of a woman who has learned that solitude is not weakness. It is her greatest source of power. She is not friendless because she is unwanted. She is friendless because she refuses to settle for the wrong people. This world is full of those who are quick to judge, quick to betray, quick to gossip, and quick to drain others of their light. It is easy to fill your life with people, but it is not easy to fill your life with the right people. Many choose company over peace, but the strong choose peace over company. There is something far more powerful in walking alone with integrity than walking with a crowd that leads you nowhere. Standards are the invisible lines that protect your soul. When you know your worth, when you know what you deserve, you no longer allow just anyone to enter your life. You no longer welcome everyone into your space. You no longer compromise your values simply because you are afraid of being alone. Instead, you stand firm in your boundaries, and that is what sets you apart. Most people will never understand this kind of strength. They will label it arrogance, distance, or coldness, but in truth, it is self-respect. It is knowing that energy is precious and not everyone deserves access to it. When you set standards, you are not shutting people out. You are protecting yourself from being drained, disrespected, or destroyed by the wrong company. Too often, people keep toxic friendships because they are afraid of silence. They cling to people who talk behind their backs, who mock their dreams, who envy their progress, all because they cannot bear the thought of walking alone. But what they fail to realize is that every wrong connection delays the right ones. Every time you allow people who bring you down to stay in your life, you create less space for those who could lift you higher. Having standards is not about being perfect, it is about being intentional. It is about choosing who has the right to sit at your table. It is about valuing yourself enough to know that your time, your energy, your peace, and your dreams are not to be wasted on those who do not appreciate them. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, you will naturally demand higher standards from the people around you. You will no longer accept bare minimum effort, half-hearted love, or shallow loyalty. You will no longer tolerate those who disappear when you need them most or those who only show up when they need something from you. The truth is, it is far lonelier to sit in a room full of people who do not truly care about you than it is to sit alone in silence. At least in silence, you are free. At least in silence, you are not betraying yourself by pretending to belong. At least in silence, you are not sacrificing your peace just to have company. The moment you realize that peace is more valuable than popularity, everything changes. You stop chasing acceptance and start protecting your soul. You stop begging for attention and start demanding respect. You stop clinging to those who cannot love you properly and start saving your energy for those who will. People may not understand why you choose solitude over socializing, but they are not meant to. They may call you difficult, antisocial, or too picky, but what they are really saying is that your standards are higher than their willingness to rise. And that is not your problem. Your responsibility is not to lower yourself so others can reach you. Your responsibility is to rise so those meant for you will meet you at your level. The ones who are intimidated by your standards were never meant to walk with you anyway. The ones who truly belong will respect your boundaries, value your presence, and match your energy without you having to ask. When you refuse to settle for less than you deserve, you begin to attract people who recognize your worth. When you stop tolerating disrespect, you begin to attract respect. When you stop giving unlimited access to everyone, you begin to attract those who value your time and presence. Standards are not walls to keep people out. They are filters that allow the right people in. They ensure that only those who align with your values, your vision, and your peace are welcomed into your life. There is a quiet kind of confidence in someone who knows their standards. They do not rush into friendships out of desperation. They do not keep people around out of fear. They are patient, knowing that the right connections are worth waiting for. They are not afraid of being misunderstood, because they know that those who truly matter will understand. They are not shaken when people leave, because they know that anyone who walks away was not meant to stay. Too often, people mistake having many friends for being loved. But numbers do not equal loyalty, and popularity does not equal peace. Some of the most admired people in public are the most betrayed in private. Some of the most surrounded people are also the most alone. That is why a woman with standards is often misjudged. Because she is not surrounded by a crowd, people assume she is lacking. But in reality, she has chosen depth over numbers, truth over illusion, and peace over chaos. There is also strength in silence when your standards are high. You do not have to prove your worth to those who do not see it. You do not have to argue with those who misjudge you. You do not have to explain your boundaries to those who have already shown they cannot respect them. Silence becomes your answer, and distance becomes your defense. You do not waste energy on convincing the wrong people of your value, because the right people will never need convincing. When you live by your standards, you will lose people. That is inevitable. Some will leave because they cannot handle your boundaries. Some will resent you because they benefited from your lack of standards before. Some will call you selfish because they can no longer use you. But what you lose in quantity, you gain in quality. What you lose in shallow company, you gain in deep peace. What you lose in noise, you gain in clarity. It takes courage to walk away from what is familiar, even if it is toxic. It takes courage to release friendships that no longer serve you, to let go of people you once loved, to admit that some relationships are better left behind. But that courage is necessary, because holding on to the wrong people out of fear will only prevent you from growing into the person you are meant to become. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is proof of strength. It is choosing yourself even when it hurts. It is trusting that what is meant for you will never require you to shrink yourself to keep it. High standards extend beyond friendships. They affect every area of your life. They shape how you work, how you love, how you dream, and how you live. When you demand more from yourself, you begin to demand more from the world around you. You stop settling for jobs that drain your soul, relationships that waste your time, or environments that do not challenge you to grow. You begin to live intentionally, and every choice you make reflects your belief in your own worth. It is true that having standards may feel isolating at times. The path will feel narrower, the options fewer, and the silence louder. But what is the alternative? To lower your standards, to let anyone into your life, to compromise your peace just so you will not feel alone. That is not living, that is surviving, and survival is not enough for someone who knows their value. They are not here to merely exist, they are here to thrive, and thriving requires boundaries, discernment, and the courage to stand alone until what is right arrives. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, moments when you wonder if your standards are too high, moments when loneliness whispers that maybe you should just settle. But deep down, you know the truth. You know that settling will only lead to disappointment. You know that lowering your standards will only bring temporary comfort but long-term regret. You know that your peace is worth more than shallow company. And so you remain firm, even when it is hard, even when it hurts, because you trust that patience will reward you with people who are worthy of your presence. The beauty of living with high standards is that when you do find people who meet them, the connection is unshakable. There is trust without fear, loyalty without condition, and love without pretense. You never have to beg for respect because it is given freely. You never have to doubt their intentions because they align with yours. You never have to question their place in your life because their actions prove their worth. These kinds of connections are rare, but they are worth every moment of waiting, every season of solitude, every sacrifice made along the way. To some, it will always look like you are walking alone. They will never see the peace you feel in protecting your energy. They will never understand the strength it takes to hold your standards high. They will never realize the power of choosing quality over quantity, but you will know. You will feel it in the way your heart rests quietly at night, in the way your spirit no longer feels heavy, in the way your path feels clear even when it is empty. That is the reward of standards, not the approval of others, but the peace within yourself. Every battle she fought alone built an armor no one can break. Strength is not something given freely, it is something carved out of pain, shaped by loss, and reinforced by endurance. To stand tall without leaning on anyone, to survive storms without a shelter, to keep walking when the road feels endless, this is what resilience looks like. People admire the final image, the confident woman who seems unshakable, but few see the tears she wiped in silence, the nights she felt broken yet refused to give up, the wounds she covered with determination because there was no one else to heal them. Resilience is not born in comfort. It is born in the fires of adversity. It is born in the moments where giving up seems easier but pressing on is the only choice. The world underestimates the power of a person who has built themselves. They assume strength comes naturally, as if it were a gift. But strength is not a gift, it is a creation. It is the result of years of facing hardships without surrender, of choosing to rise after every fall, of daring to hope when despair whispered louder. A self-made woman knows what it means to break and rebuild, to lose and start again, to fall into darkness and still choose light. That kind of resilience cannot be taught in books or inherited through privilege. It is earned through scars, through endurance, through relentless courage. What makes this resilience so extraordinary is that it is not dependent on anyone else. Some people only find strength when supported, when reassured, when surrounded by encouragement. But those who are self-made create strength even when no one believes in them, even when no one stands by their side, even when no hand is extended to pull them up. They become their own encouragement, their own supporter, their own protector. They build an inner voice that says, "You will not be broken," even when everything outside them tries to prove otherwise, and with every battle survived, that voice grows louder, stronger, and more unshakable. Resilience teaches lessons no easy life could ever offer. It teaches patience when results do not come immediately. It teaches faith when the path forward seems invisible. It teaches gratitude for even the smallest victories, because every step forward was fought for. It teaches discernment, the ability to recognize who truly stands with you and who only pretends to. Above all, it teaches unbreakable self-belief, because when you've had to walk through fire and came out alive, no one can convince you that you are powerless. There is something unstoppable about someone who has suffered and survived. They do not fear challenges the way others do, because they have already faced worse. They do not crumble at criticism, because they have endured harsher words than anyone could throw at them. They do not lose themselves in chaos, because they have walked through storms before and know how to stand firm. Their strength intimidates those who have never faced real battles, because it is the kind of strength you cannot fake. You cannot pretend to have resilience. You either earn it through struggle, or you do not have it at all. And yet, this kind of resilience often comes at a cost. The cost of loneliness, the cost of sacrifice, the cost of carrying burdens most would collapse under. The ones who become self-made have often known betrayal, abandonment, and disappointment more deeply than others. They have been forced to find strength not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. Life did not ask if they were ready, it demanded that they rise, and though it was painful, though it was unfair, it created within them a power that nothing can shake. The beauty of this resilience is that it transforms pain into wisdom. Every wound becomes a lesson, every setback becomes fuel, every heartbreak becomes proof that nothing can destroy them. Instead of being hardened into bitterness, resilience shapes them into visionaries, into leaders, into people who refuse to let life's cruelty define them. They learn to take control of their story, to no longer be a victim of circumstance but the author of their own destiny. While others complain about what went wrong, they use what went wrong to build what will go right. What others see as failure, they see as preparation. What others see as rejection, they see as redirection. What others see as the end, they see as a beginning. This perspective is what makes them powerful, because when life can no longer break your spirit, life can no longer control your future. You become unstoppable, not because challenges disappear, but because challenges no longer intimidate you. Resilience is also a quiet kind of strength. It does not always shout or seek attention. It does not need to prove itself. It moves silently, steadily, like a river cutting through stone. It is not loud, but it is undeniable, and those who possess it do not waste energy convincing others of their worth. They let their endurance, their survival, their persistence speak for them. While others boast about their easy victories, they stand firm with the weight of battles won in silence. There is also a unique kind of freedom that comes with resilience. When you have built yourself from nothing, when you have survived on your own, you no longer live in fear of losing people or things. You know that even if everything were taken away, you would find a way to rise again. That is freedom, to no longer be controlled by fear, to no longer depend on external circumstances for your strength. This freedom allows you to take risks, to pursue dreams others would be too afraid to chase, to step into the unknown with confidence, because you know that no matter what happens, you will endure. This resilience is also contagious. Those who witness it cannot help but be inspired. They see someone who has been knocked down and still rises, and it reminds them of their own potential. It reminds them that they too can overcome, that they too can survive, that they too can transform their pain into strength. A self-made woman does not only rise for herself, she becomes a symbol of what is possible for others. Her story becomes a light in the dark, proof that survival is not the end but the beginning of greatness. But the most remarkable part of resilience is not just surviving, it is thriving. It is choosing not just to endure life, but to create a life worth living. It is refusing to let pain define you, and instead using it as the foundation for a future filled with meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. It is about rising above bitterness, above anger, above resentment, and creating beauty out of brokenness. That is true power, not the ability to avoid pain, but the ability to transform it into strength. There will always be those who underestimate the power of resilience. They will assume that being quiet means being weak, that standing alone means being lonely, that refusing to bend means being stubborn. But those who truly understand resilience know that it is the foundation of greatness. Without it, no dream can survive, no vision can endure, no future can be built. Resilience is what carries you when motivation fades, when inspiration is silent, when circumstances are cruel. It is what pushes you to keep moving even when your body is tired and your mind is weary. It is what whispers, just one more step, when the world screams, give up. Every scar carried is proof of resilience. Every scar tells a story not of defeat but of victory. Each one is a reminder that the worst came, and yet survival followed. And those scars are not to be hidden. They are badges of honor, symbols of strength, proof of an indomitable spirit. Where others see brokenness, resilience sees beauty. Where others see weakness, resilience sees wisdom. Where others see the end, resilience sees a new beginning waiting to be claimed. That is why resilience is so rare and so powerful. Because it cannot be handed to you, it must be earned. It cannot be bought, it must be lived. It cannot be imitated, it must be embodied. And those who carry it walk differently, speak differently, live differently. They do not beg for life to be easy. They demand the strength to rise no matter how hard it becomes. They do not pray for fewer storms. They pray for the courage to walk through them without losing themselves. They do not waste time fearing the future. They face it boldly, knowing that they have already survived too much to ever be defeated. And so, every battle fought alone becomes more than just a struggle. It becomes a foundation. Every hardship faced becomes more than just pain, it becomes training. Every tear shed in silence becomes more than sorrow. It becomes fuel, and from that fuel, resilience is born. From that resilience, power is born. And from that power, a life is created that no one and nothing can destroy.